Have you ever noticed that the clearer your thinking becomes, the quieter your social life gets? That the more you see through illusions, the fewer friends you seem to have? If this sounds familiar, you're experiencing what philosophers have called the burden of clarity, and you're far from alone in this struggle. Throughout history, those who see reality most clearly have paid the steepest social price. From ancient Greek philosophers to modern intellectuals, clear thinkers have consistently found themselves on the outside looking in. But why does mental clarity come with such a heavy cost? Here's something fascinating about human psychology. We can admire physical strength without feeling diminished. We can respect someone's wealth without losing our self-worth. We can even appreciate beauty without feeling ugly ourselves. But intellectual superiority? That's different. That cuts deep. When you encounter someone who thinks more clearly than you do, something primal happens in your brain. Neuroscientists call it cognitive threat response. Your mind doesn't just recognize their intelligence, it interprets it as a personal attack on your identity. Because unlike muscles or money, our thoughts are who we are. Clear thinkers don't just offer different perspectives, they hold up mirrors that reflect our mental limitations back at us. And most people would rather break the mirror than face what it shows them. Think about your last social gathering. How long did the conversation stay on surface-level topics? Sports, weather, celebrity gossip. These aren't just casual conversations, they're social safety zones. The moment someone introduces a genuinely complex idea, watch what happens. Eyes glaze over. People check their phones. Someone changes the subject. This isn't accidental. It's protective. Most social interactions are built on shared illusions, that our problems are simple, that our beliefs are obviously correct, that life has clear answers. Clear thinkers threaten this comfortable simplicity by asking uncomfortable questions and revealing uncomfortable truths. Studies show that people actually prefer confident ignorance over uncertain wisdom. We're drawn to those who speak with conviction, even when they're wrong, over those who speak with nuance and admit complexity. This is why simplistic leaders often triumph over thoughtful ones, and why viral content beats nuanced discussion every time. The Roman philosopher Seneca understood this paradox deeply. He wrote about what he called the price of perception, the idea that those who see most clearly often live most alone. Seneca argued that intellectual growth naturally leads to social distance, not because clear thinkers become arrogant, but because they can no longer participate in the comforting delusions that bind most people together. Marcus Aurelius, writing in his private journal that became Meditations, struggled with this same isolation. Despite being the most powerful man in the world, he felt profoundly alone because his philosophical insights separated him from everyone around him. He wrote, "How much trouble he avoids who does not look to see what his neighbor says or does, but only to what he does himself." This wasn't misanthropy, it was recognition. Clear thinkers often find that their insights create an invisible barrier between them and others, not because they want to be separate, but because their clarity makes others uncomfortable. Today's digital world has amplified this ancient problem. Social media algorithms reward emotional reactions over thoughtful responses. Complex ideas get lost in the noise, while simple, emotionally charged content goes viral. The most successful online personalities aren't the deepest thinkers. They're the most entertaining or outrageous. Clear thinkers face a modern dilemma. water down their insights to fit viral formats, or accept that their ideas will reach smaller audiences. Many choose authenticity over popularity, which only deepens their isolation in an increasingly connected world. Echo chambers make this worse. People surround themselves with information that confirms what they already believe, making them even more resistant to new perspectives. When a clear thinker introduces challenging ideas, they're not just disagreeing with someone's opinion, they're threatening their entire information ecosystem. Recent brain imaging studies reveal something startling. When people encounter ideas that challenge their core beliefs, their brains activate the same regions that respond to physical threats. Literally, new ideas trigger fight or flight responses. Clear thinking isn't just intellectually challenging, it's neurologically threatening. This explains why people often respond to philosophical discussions with genuine anxiety or anger. Their brains are interpreting complex ideas as actual dangers. It's not that they're choosing to be closed-minded. Their nervous systems are protecting them from what feels like an attack. For clear thinkers, this creates a cruel irony. The very insights that could help others are often perceived as threats. The more helpful your perspective, the more likely people are to reject it. History reveals a consistent pattern. Society's greatest benefactors were often its greatest outcasts. Ignaz Semmelweis discovered that hand-washing prevented disease, but the medical establishment rejected his findings so violently that he suffered a nervous breakdown. Today, we call him a pioneer of modern medicine. Darwin delayed publishing his theory of evolution for decades because he knew the social consequences would be severe. When he finally published, he was attacked not just intellectually, but personally, despite the overwhelming evidence supporting his ideas. These weren't isolated incidents. They represent humanity's systematic resistance to uncomfortable truths. We celebrate these thinkers now, but only after their ideas became safe and socially acceptable. The 19th century philosopher Arthur Schopenhauer developed perhaps the most honest framework for understanding intellectual isolation. He argued that intelligence naturally leads to loneliness because it creates what he called the will to truth, a drive to understand reality regardless of how uncomfortable that understanding might be. Most people, Schopenhauer observed, live by the will to comfort. They seek pleasure and avoid psychological pain. But clear thinkers are cursed with an insatiable need to understand, even when understanding hurts. This creates two different species of human experience. Most people find meaning in relationships, entertainment, and comfortable routines. Clear thinkers find these things hollow because they can see through the illusions that make them satisfying. Schopenhauer didn't see this as superiority. He saw it as tragedy. He wrote, "A man can be himself only so long as he is alone, and if he does not love solitude, he will not love freedom, for it is only when he is alone that he is really free." If you recognize yourself in this description, what can you do? Schopenhauer offered practical wisdom that remains relevant today. First, embrace solitude as a gift, not a punishment. Use your alone time for intellectual and creative pursuits, rather than desperately seeking social validation. Your capacity for independent thought is rare and valuable. Treat it as such. Second, choose your conversations carefully. Not every person or situation calls for your deepest insights. Learn to recognize when surface-level interaction is appropriate and when deeper discussion is welcome. Third, find your intellectual tribe. They may be rare, but there are others who think as deeply as you do. Seek them out through books, online communities, or specialized groups. You don't need to be understood by everyone, just by the right people. Here's what most discussions of intellectual loneliness miss. There's profound freedom in thinking clearly, even if it comes with social costs. Clear thinkers aren't bound by the same mental limitations that constrain others. They can see possibilities others miss, understand connections others ignore, and navigate complexity others find overwhelming. Yes, you might eat lunch alone more often. Yes, you might find small talk painful, but you also have access to insights and perspectives that enrich life in ways that social validation never could. The philosopher Epicurus taught that true friendship requires intellectual compatibility. Better to have one friend who understands your thoughts than 100 who find them threatening. In the end, clear thinking presents us with a fundamental choice. We can seek comfort in shared illusions, or we can accept the isolation that comes with seeing reality clearly. Most people choose comfort, and there's nothing wrong with that choice. But if you're someone who can't help but see through illusions, who questions what others take for granted, who thinks deeply even when it hurts, know that this is both your burden and your gift. You're part of a long tradition of human beings who chose truth over comfort, understanding over belonging. The world needs clear thinkers, even when it doesn't want them. Every advancement in human knowledge, every breakthrough in understanding, every step toward wisdom has come from someone willing to think clearly despite the social cost. So if you find yourself alone with your thoughts tonight, remember, you're not broken, you're not wrong, and you're certainly not alone in your aloneness. You're simply paying the ancient price that clear thinking has always demanded. The question isn't whether you should think deeply. If you're watching this, that choice has already been made for you. The question is whether you'll embrace the responsibility that comes with seeing clearly and find meaning in the unique perspective that only intellectual courage can provide.